This is a bustling commercial district near Shanghai Railway Station, with a continuous flow of travelers every day. Now, the Pacific Department Store, a well-known local business located here, has closed down. This closure has forced the businesses, restaurants, convenience stores, and hundreds of employees in the mall to seek new opportunities, which is truly lamentable. This is another shopping mall in Shanghai, the Xintian 360 Plaza, which is almost as good as closed, even though it has not completely shut down yet. In the empty mall, all you can see are tightly closed roller shutter doors and empty counters. In the spacious mall lobby, you can only see one or two people. If you didn't know it was in Shanghai, everyone would think it was a mall on the brink of collapse in some third or fourth tier small city. However, this scene has truly happened in Shanghai. After experiencing the painful lockdown, Shanghai is now facing a wave of store closures and an exodus. While lower-class migrant workers are packed in the train station, celebrities and wealthy people have left Shanghai ahead of time. For a while, news of stars like Ada Choi renting out her luxurious Shanghai apartment also appeared on Weibo's trending searches. Foreigners who have been living in Shanghai for years are also leaving. Li, a resident of the Tangchen Yipin luxury apartment complex in Liujiazui, told Radio Free Asia that there used to be many foreign tenants in their community, but now they can't see anyone. There used to be a lot of foreigners in all nationalities coming in and out of here, but now they're all gone. Most of them left during the lockdown last year. Zhou Rui, who was just in her early 40s, was hired by a large multinational company in the United States to oversee the Chinese market in Shanghai, with an annual salary of nearly 2 million yuan. She sighed that Shanghai can no longer return to the prosperous period of the past decade. Many foreign companies have closed down, including Sino-US joint ventures in Shanghai, and many friends have changed careers because they don't have job opportunities in foreign companies. Now that the Sino-US relationship has deteriorated and government policies are unstable, it will affect foreign companies' investment decisions. Who would dare to invest in an environment of policy turbulence? This once vibrant Chinese metropolis now lies in ruins after being placed under lockdown. What about the workers who stayed? As far as the eye can see, there is only rubble and debris, along with a weathered cement pipe and a dusty blanket carelessly placed nearby. This is a makeshift outdoor sleeping area under a bridge. The bridge is said to have a leader who charges 5 yuan per night for accommodation. Yes, this is Shanghai in 2023, where migrant workers cram under the bridge. During the COVID-19 outbreak in China, Shanghai was placed under lockdown starting in March 2022 and did not fully reopen until June 25th. During the over 3 months of lockdown, economic activity in Shanghai was brought to a standstill, and the once vibrant city became a deserted place. Although the zero-tolerance policy has been abandoned by the authorities, Shanghai is still struggling to recover from the impact of the lockdown. Some delivery workers, migrant workers, and other unfortunate workers have to sleep in places such as train stations and next to ATMs. Charging for a place to sleep under a bridge is something new to them. Despite the high cost of living and expensive rent, the allure of being in the top-tier cities such as Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen for migrant workers is evident. As long as they can endure hardship, they can still earn satisfactory wages. This is why so many migrant workers flock to these first-tier cities. However, after experiencing several waves of exodus, Shanghai has recorded its first population decline in over 5 years. The latest population data released by the Shanghai Statistics Bureau in 2023 shows that the population of Shanghai in 2022 was 24.76 million, a decrease of about 135,400 compared to 24.89 million in 2021. This is the first time that China's financial center Shanghai has experienced a population decline in 5 years. In 2022, the birth rate in Shanghai was 4.4 per mil, a decrease of 0.3 per mil from 4.7 per mil in 2021. And the birth rate was lower than the national average birth rate of 6.77 per mil. Affected by the aging population, about 18.7% of the population in Shanghai is over the age of 65, higher than the national average of 14.9%. According to Reuters, more than 250,000 migrant workers left Shanghai due to Beijing's strict zero-COVID policy and the lockdown measures implemented in Shanghai in March 2022. The population decline in the two major cities of Shanghai and Beijing is consistent with the trend of China's population changes. According to official data released by Beijing authorities, China's population has decreased for the first time in 60 years in 2022. The reasons include rising living costs, especially in big cities, weak economic growth in China, and changes in the mindset of Chinese people. According to an official survey conducted by the Shanghai Statistics Bureau, about 60% of Shanghai residents stated that they only want one child or do not want children at all. In addition, more than 28% of those surveyed in Shanghai said that they do not plan to have another child due to the high cost of raising children. Not only are the populations of Shanghai and Beijing declining, but China's media outlet Yicai reported that today's big cities in China have bid farewell to population expansion, with the population growth rate in many cities such as Xi'an and Chengdu slowing down dramatically. The report cites several major cities as examples. According to data from the 7th National Population Census in China, the total population of Xi'an reached 12.94 million in 2020, an increase of almost 4.5 million people from 2010, or a growth rate of 52.97%. In other words, the average annual growth rate of Xi'an's permanent population has been nearly 450,000 people each year, from 2010 to 2020. In 2021, the permanent population of Xi'an increased by only 210,100 people, and the increase in 2022 was almost halved. Not only Xi'an, but also central cities such as Chengdu, Zhengzhou, and Hangzhou have seen a significant decline in population. Compared with the 6th National Population Census, Zhengzhou and Hangzhou have increased respectively by 3.97 million and 3.24 million in the 7th National Census. The average annual growth during this decade has been over 300,000 people. However, last year, Zhengzhou and Hangzhou increased by only 86,000 and 172,000 people respectively, with an overall decrease of about 30% in population growth. The decline in Chengdu's population growth rate was the largest last year. On March 27th, the Chengdu Statistics Bureau released a notice on the major population data for Chengdu in 2022. The notice showed that the permanent population of Chengdu at the end of 2022 was 21.27 million, an increase of 76,000 people from 2021, or a growth rate of 0.4%. Over the past decade, Chengdu's population has expanded rapidly. The 7th National Population Census showed that the permanent population increased by 5.82 million people compared to the 6th National Population Census, with an average annual growth rate of about 580,000 people. In 2021, the permanent population of Chengdu increased by 245,000 people, but the increase in 2022 dropped to below 100,000 people. A journalist from Yicai News found through the Chengdu Statistical Yearbook that, except for 2007, Chengdu's population growth has been below 100,000 for over 20 years, since the beginning of the new century. In 2007, the permanent population of Chengdu was 12.58 million, which increased by 94,000 from the end of the previous year. In other words, Chengdu's population growth in 2022 was the lowest this century. The situation of slowing population growth is common in major cities. Yicai News has compiled population data from major central cities such as municipalities, provincial capitals, and sub-provincial cities. Among the 15 cities that have published their population data, only Hefei and Lanzhou have seen population growth. Hefei and Lanzhou increased by 96,000 and 12.5 thousand people respectively in 2021, and by 169,000 and 31,000 people in 2022. According to Reuters, demographers predict that China's population will decline for the first time since the Great Famine of 1961 in 2022. This is a significant change that will have far-reaching effects on the global economy and world order. The number of newborns in China in 2022 will reach a historic low, dropping to below 10 million from 10.6 million in 2021, a decrease of 11.5% compared to 2020. In an interview with the media, Wang Feng, a sociology professor at the University of California, said, "With this historic turning point, China has entered a long and irreversible process of population decline, which is unprecedented in Chinese and even world history. China's population can decrease by 45% in less than 80 years, which will be a China that the world is unfamiliar with." The report stated that China's total population increased by 480,000 to 1.41 billion in 2021. UN population experts estimate that China's population will begin to decline in 2023, and India will surpass China to become the world's most populous country. China's population is expected to decrease by 109 million by 2050, more than 3 times the forecast in 2019. The pandemic has had a greater impact on the population of childbearing age. According to Reuters, Zhang Qi's life in Beijing under strict COVID-19 prevention policies over the past 3 years has brought her tremendous pressure and uncertainty, to the point where she is considering not giving birth in China. The e-commerce executive in Shanghai said that after Beijing suddenly canceled its COVID-19 zero-tolerance policy last December, the number of infections in China increased rapidly. China's medical system has been overwhelmed by the pandemic, and stories about mothers and babies unable to receive medical treatment were the last straw for Zhang Qi's desire to have a child. She said, "I heard that giving birth in public hospitals is too scary. I really won't consider having a child." The population crisis has prompted the authorities to implement various measures. In addition to relaxing the one-child policy, since 2021, the Beijing government has introduced incentive measures such as tax cuts, extended maternity leave, strengthened medical insurance, and housing subsidies to encourage Chinese people to have more children. So far, the effects of these measures have been disappointing. In an interview with Radio Free Asia, Wang Jian, a senior economic journalist in the United States, said, "Population is the foundation of the economy. All consumption comes from the population, and all industries and development are based on the population. Without labor, you can't do anything. Population means opportunity. Only areas with young people will have economic opportunities, like building houses and opening restaurants. Everyone knows that the elderly do not consume, so if there are no opportunities, how can your economy be vibrant?" Wang Jin added that as the population reflects a country's fortunes, China, which has become the country with the largest and fastest aging elderly population in the world, is beginning to decline. Currently, population experts in China are worried about young people's unwillingness to have children, and even the central bank and state media CCTV have expressed concern about this most prominent social phenomenon. According to CCTV Finance, a set of data shows that in 2018, there were over 240 million single adults on the mainland, including more than 77 million who lived alone. The increase in the number of single people has caused concern. Reports show that from 2013 to 2020, the number of registered marriages on the mainland fell from a historic high of 13.47 million couples to 8.13 million couples. In contrast, the divorce rate has continued to rise. From 1987 to 2020, the number of registered divorces in China rose from 580,000 to 3.73 million couples. Under the dual effects of declining marriage rates and rising divorce rates, the fertility rate has been decreasing year by year. Population expert and author of Big Country with an Empty Nest, Yi Fuxian, believes that China's current economic decline is essentially a population crisis. "I predicted in 2008 that 2012 was the turning point of China's population and economy, and the economy would start to decline. No one believed me at the time. In my book, I predicted that the average growth rate from 2012 to 2014 would only be 7.5%, and no one believed me then. But later, my prediction was proven to be accurate. For example, the economic decline in the Northeast now is essentially a population crisis. In the 1980s, the total fertility rate in the Northeast dropped to below 2, and it has continued to decline since then. The decline in the birth rate in the Northeast is 8 or 9 years earlier than the national average, and the economy began to decline even earlier, Yi Fuxian said. Yi Fuxian frankly stated that China's population problem is serious, with 3 major challenges: inability to support, unwillingness to have children, and inability to have children. The inability to afford children is due to the lack of material conditions. The reluctance to have children stems from psychological factors, with the average woman only willing to have 1.6 children, lower than 2.1 in Taiwan and 1.8 in Hong Kong. Yi Fuxian suggests that if someone cannot give birth, it is due to physiological factors. The incidence of infertility in China was only 1 to 3% in the early 1980s, but it had increased dramatically to 18% by 2020. For those who are unwilling or unable to give birth, the government's ability to intervene is even more limited. Yi said, "I am very pessimistic about the future trends of China's population structure."